So the determination of a baby's gender actually begins right at conception. It all depends on the combination of sex chromosomes that are contributed by the parents. The mother will always provide an X chromosome, while the father provides either an X or a Y chromosome. If the father's sperm carries an X chromosome, the baby will be genetically female, meaning XX. But if it carries a Y chromosome, the baby will be genetically male, or XY. So, yeah, scientifically it's the father's sperm that determines the baby's gender. Gender and sex are often used interchangeably, but honestly, they have different meanings. Sex refers to biological attributes, while gender can involve identity, roles, and social expectations. Understanding both aspects really helps us approach this topic with a bit more respect. In most pregnancies, the baby's gender can be identified via ultrasound by around 18 to 22 weeks. However, accuracy depends on the baby's position and, well, the technician's skill. Earlier non-invasive prenatal tests, or NIPT, can actually detect gender as early as 10 weeks through DNA analysis. You know, some parents actually choose to keep the baby's gender a surprise until birth. This choice, well, it really adds a sense of excitement and anticipation for many families. On the other hand, others prefer to prepare in advance with gender-specific names, clothing, or decorations. Statistically speaking, slightly more boys are born than girls worldwide. The natural birth ratio is roughly 105 boys for every 100 girls. This small imbalance is thought to help compensate for higher male infant mortality rates. Male fetuses generally grow just a bit faster than female fetuses in the womb. Sometimes this difference can even be seen in ultrasound measurements. However, it's important to remember that it doesn't predict gender with certainty. Hormonal differences start influencing development very early. In males, the presence of the SRY gene on the Y chromosome triggers testes development and testosterone production. In females, the absence of this gene leads to ovarian development. The idea that certain sexual positions or timing during intercourse can influence baby gender is widespread, but scientifically unsupported. While entertaining, these methods have no proven basis in reliable research. Gender selection remains largely random without medical intervention. Some cultural myths suggest that the mother's cravings during pregnancy indicate gender. For example, craving sweets might predict a girl, while salty foods suggest a boy. These beliefs are fun but have no scientific backing. So, the shape and position of the pregnant belly are often said to hint at the baby's gender. You might have heard that a high belly supposedly means you're having a girl, and a low belly indicates a boy. But again, these are just myths with no real medical foundation. There are plenty of old wives' tales out there, including the wedding ring test, where a ring tied to a string swings over the belly. The direction of the swing is thought to predict whether it's a boy or a girl. Despite how popular this one is, it actually has no scientific validity. In vitro fertilization, or IVF, combined with pre-implantation genetic testing, PGT, can accurately determine an embryo's gender. Some parents choose this for family balancing or to avoid sex-linked genetic disorders. However, it's important to remember that ethical considerations and legal regulations really do vary worldwide. So, certain genetic disorders are actually linked to one gender more than the other. For example, hemophilia and Duchenne muscular dystrophy are typically passed down to males. Knowing the baby's gender can really help when it comes to assessing these kinds of risks. In some cultures, one gender may be traditionally preferred over the other. This can definitely influence family planning decisions and, create some societal pressures. But modern ethical frameworks strongly discourage any kind of gender-based discrimination. Psychological studies show that parents often have expectations based on their baby's gender. They might even unconsciously treat sons and daughters a bit differently right from birth. Being aware of these biases is actually really important for promoting equal parenting. So, gender reveal parties have become a pretty popular trend these days. Families often get really creative, announcing the baby's gender with colored cakes, balloons, or confetti. While these celebrations can be a lot of fun, it's worth noting that some of the more extreme reveals have actually raised environmental and safety concerns. Now, some researchers have looked into whether there are slight correlations between parental factors and a baby's gender. For example, things like higher paternal age or stressful events might, just maybe, slightly influence gender ratios. Still, these factors really have minimal practical impact overall. There are actually certain sperm sorting techniques that claim to increase your chances of conceiving a particular gender. Methods like the Erickson method, for instance, separate sperm by weight, but honestly, their effectiveness is still pretty controversial. Medical experts generally advise caution when it comes to these kinds of services. So twins can actually be the same gender or opposite genders, depending on whether they're identical or fraternal. Identical twins always share the same gender, since they come from a single fertilized egg. On the other hand, fraternal twins result from two separate eggs, and that means they can be any gender combination. Intersex conditions happen when chromosomal, gonadal, or anatomical sex characteristics don't quite fit the typical definitions of male or female. This really challenges those rigid binary concepts of gender that a lot of us are used to. Medical and ethical approaches to intersex conditions are still evolving, and, well, there's a lot more to learn in this area. In many species, environmental factors actually determine the gender of offspring. For example, the temperature during egg incubation can influence gender in some reptiles. But in humans, gender is set by chromosomes right at conception, and yeah, environment doesn't play a role in that process. Baby name trends often vary greatly by gender. Cultural preferences, historical figures, and popular media influence naming choices for boys and girls. Some parents also opt for unisex names to allow gender flexibility. The marketing of baby products often reflects strong gender stereotypes. Pink is typically associated with girls, while blue is associated with boys. Many parents today choose to reject these stereotypes in favor of more neutral options. Language itself often reinforces gender norms from infancy. Terms of endearment, toys, and clothing may subtly guide children towards certain roles. Raising awareness helps promote a more balanced approach to child development. So, some research suggests that prenatal hormone exposure may influence later gender-related behaviors. Higher prenatal testosterone levels may, correlate with traits typically seen in boys like spatial reasoning. However, individual variation remains vast and complex. So, gender diversity is gaining more recognition globally. Some individuals identify outside the traditional male-female binary, which, leads to broader understandings of gender identity. Respect for these identities really starts with open-minded education. Health risks during pregnancy may sometimes vary by baby gender. For instance, some studies suggest that mothers carrying boys might experience slightly higher risks of gestational diabetes or preeclampsia. Still, overall risks remain manageable with proper care. Research into gender differences continues to reveal both biological and social influences. And while some traits may differ statistically between boys and girls, individual personalities and abilities are shaped by many factors. Every child is unique. In conclusion, baby gender is a fascinating topic that blends science, culture, and personal experience. While chromosomes determine biological sex, society shapes how we perceive and interact with gender. Embracing knowledge and respect really allows us to support all children regardless of gender.